Peace, 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 peace. Welcome to Know Thyself University. I am your host, Queen Ra, and we are here to discuss some things that you're not going to be able to discuss anywhere else. So, what is it that we're going to talk about today? So, we're going to do our first official movie breakdown for Know Thyself University for the Patreon channel. So, if you're not subscribed and you want to go ahead and get subscribed to that right now, so we're gonna talk about Doctor Sleep. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Doctor Sleep, but the movie Doctor Sleep is a really good movie. That is really dark, but they really giving you the go down on what it is that's really going on out here. So I really wanted to do the movie breakdown on this movie because um of what's going on out here. A lot of people are talking about Pizzagate. A lot of people are talking about adrenochrome. A lot of people are talking about Save the Children. And why are people talking about this like that? And why is it not being talked about in the news? Right? So that's what the movie Doctor Sleep is all about. It's all about why they taking these kids. So if you can look at it and get what they're trying to tell you, then you know what's going down. And they really kind of make it pretty obvious in this movie, and I think that's why a lot of people haven't heard of this movie. So I'm gonna give you a little background about it, right? So the movie Doctor Sleep is the sequel to the movie The Shining. Most people have heard of The Shining. Most people have seen The Shining, but there's a good majority of people who have not heard of his sequel, Doctor Sleep. And this movie was just released in 2019, so it's fairly new. But you got to ask yourself why you never heard of this movie, even though it went to the theaters. Why you never saw any marketing for it? Why you don't know anything about this movie even existing? And I think it's because of what the movie itself is really about and what the movie is showing in itself. I mean, they really breaking down, showing you the ritual of what's going on, why they doing what they doing. And it's a lot of people who are talking about to save the children. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, what are they talking about? Why are they talking about this? And if you watch this movie, you'll understand what's going on. Because sex trafficking, child trafficking is excessively high. And it's something that is not talked about. And especially when you're talking about black and brown people, you got little black and brown girls go missing every 30 minutes, but you don't get an Amber Alert every 30 minutes. That's not common knowledge. It's not discussed. It's not talked about. So why is that? What's really going on out here, right? So that's what it is that we're gonna talk about. So let's go ahead and let's jump right on into it, because this is it's a lot we're gonna discuss pertaining to this movie and pertaining to the things that they're talking about. So um if you haven't seen the movie, if you are listening to this in the Patreon, then you should see a link where you will be able to watch the movie in full and in completion. Because there will be spoilers in this audio, of course. So I don't recommend you listening to it if you plan on looking at the movie. But if you want to listen to it and then watch the movie so that you can see the things that I talk about, that's fine as well. All right. So first off, the movie opens up. It opens and we meet the villain in the very opening scene, right? So it opens and they show us the little girl, and she kind of wanders away from her family. Her name is Violet. She says she want to go pick some flowers, so she wanders away from her family, and she meets this woman. And the first thing that you're gonna notice about her is she's wearing a black top hat, right? And it's what she actually points out to the little girl, because of course it's gonna stand out, a woman wearing a black top hat, and she makes the connection of it as to being a magician, right? So they're already symbolizing the use of magic, and not only any magic, but they're particularly symbolizing black magic because they're showing you a black top hat. So they're emphasizing that this particular person is dark, probably dark. Going to use you know this energy or these forces to do something to benefit only themselves, because that's the definition of black magic. It's magic in itself isn't bad, or it isn't inherently bad. It's what you do with it. It's just like money. Money is only gonna emphasize or magnify who you already are. It's not gonna change you. It's only just gonna magnify who you are because of how you are going to feel with that money in your possession. So, so she points that out, and like I said, they symbolize in the use of magic. So, black is always symbolizing chaos. It's symbolizing the collective unconscious. Whenever you watch a movie, they're always going to associate what's bad with being dark, or being black, and there's a reason for that. We're gonna keep on, kind of going. But like I said, it's symbolizing something in particular. Our minds, because we are, so embedded with religion, is automatically about a moral ground. It's always about something being good or bad, but in all honesty, in actuality, that is all about the perspective that that person may be at on who is right or who's wrong. So it's not really, it's not about that. It's just about the intention of it. If your intention is anything other than love, then it's on a lower frequency. You know what I'm saying? So, um, and it's also because it's a hat and being on her head, and it because a hat encloses on your head, it symbolizes the crown, and the top hat also symbolizes portals. It's your mind. So, dark chaos, mind manipulation. That's what we're looking at. Now, the use of magic itself, like I said, is not bad. It's just, but she goes on and she shows her a magic trick using the hat. So, you know, when we talking about the shining is like a psychic ability. So we're still talking about the shining. It's just being used under a different terminology in this movie. So she pulls out flowers, because of course the little girl likes flowers. Her name is Violet. So, she tell the girl, these are special flowers, but they're special like you. They're magic because you're magic. So she tells the girl she's special. But what she does next, she takes one of the flowers and she eats it, and the little girl is so puzzled. And at this time, you can tell that she's uncomfortable, and she can tell that something is wrong, because there's a group of people who Rose, which is what she's called in the movie, Rose. She says these are her friends, and they're inching in, getting closer and closer. And so when she eats the flower, the little girl says, "You're not supposed to do that." And she says it's special. She said, "Yes." She says this it's the special ones that taste best. And then they take the little girl, right? And so off the gate, they let us know what this is. What this is, they taking kids. So uh, this is already letting you know, this movie is gonna be real, and they're gonna show you some things. So after that, they take us back to Danny, who was the main character of The Shining, the little boy, and they give us a little follow up on him since he's left the Overlook Hotel. And of course, he traumatized after everything that he's been through, and Dick continues to still show up for him and continues to help him. And Danny says something that's very important. See, what I know is when you watching movies, especially when you're looking for the underlying message, um, dialogue is very important. It's very, 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 very important. So, a lot of times, movies that people find really boring, they usually have a lot of dialogue. So it's always about what that story is trying to tell you, because a story is a means of subconscious motivation to motivate you to do something subconsciously, because a movie is playing on your mind. That's why you go to a theater. The theaters are shaped like a dome. It's to emulate the mind. So they take us to Danny. Like I said, he says something, and he says, when Dick is talking to him about the shining, he's like, "Well, I won't do it. I won't shine anymore, because she found me, and she'll keep coming back until she gets me, because these entities are still trying to get him even though he's left that hotel." And so what he says to him is very important. He says, to some things, um, dark things, the shining is like food. He told him, "I didn't shine like you. Nobody shined like you in that place. In that place, you were a 1,000,000-watt light bulb. And you got to know that that's you. You got to know that nobody can shine like you. If you here, if you on this path, then you shine. You got to believe it. And there are some entities that's going to come after you, and they going to want to take your light away from you. And it's people who try and take your light, and they don't even know that they trying to take their light from you. They don't even understand that that's what they doing. But we're gonna get more and more further into it. Because Dick goes on and he says, the world's a hungry place, and the darkest things are the hungriest, and it eat what shines. See, that's the way that this reality works. That's what the ancients were teaching about this physical reality and about this place that we are in. Dick goes on and further teaches him a trick that he can do to use in his own mind when those entities come for him. And he taught him something pertaining to a box and how to lock away things in a box in your mind. It's a very, very powerful mind mental trick that he taught him. Um, so, but the shining, is like a sixth sense. It's a psychic gift, and it's when you have psychic gifts and when they're sensitive, meaning you actually are in tune with them. They're like doors that's open in your mind, and some people are just more sensitive to other than others. You know what I'm saying? Some people, this sensitivity is very high. Some people have to work really hard to even pick up on this. But depending on the person, it varies. Now, that's the power in the tool of astrology and numerology because it allows you to break down that person's energy so that you can see what they are more susceptible to and what it is that they can tap into, what it is they have to learn, what it is that they have to overcome. You're never supposed to fall into the astrology like a religion. You're never supposed to fall into it like a belief. It's a tool, but so much of our history and so much of who we are has been lost all throughout the course of human history. The only history that they're telling us that we're working with is about 6,000 years old, maybe 10. But in all actuality, the things that we have written record of are remnants of the thing that we were orally talking about and orally teaching 100,000 years ago. See what I'm saying? Hundreds of thousands of years ago, we was teaching it and we were doing it, and it was oral, and there was just this vast decline because there were things that occurred throughout the human history, and it allowed us to decline. It made us decline. If you've seen the show C emphasizes that because although these people, you're made to believe that these people have degraded or that they are more savage because they have lost the sense of sight. But in losing the sense of sight, they gain the sixth sense of intuition. That's what the show C is all about. It's a dope ass show that's on Apple. If you ain't seen it, I'll probably reference it a whole lot more in the future. But that's the whole key. That's the sixth sense, and it's a way more powerful sense because it allows you to be able to see, heal, to see and hear from outside of just your physical reality. Because there's a whole nother world that we are unable to see, right? He's on to use this trick, and we see him do that. So we learn that as a boy, he learns how to do this trick. Okay, so then they fast forward us, to like 2011, however many years later this is, and we see Danny, and he's really screwed up. Um, and it's not really a surprise, because way back when he was a child, he made that choice to not shine. And in order to not shine, so that's why you see drugs. He's doing cocaine. He's a drunk. He's an alcoholic. um he's getting into fights, he's violent, he's just a low life, he's living a low vibrational existence because that's what usually happens when people who have that gift, when like those highly sensitive psychic abilities, because it's not always easily accepted and it's not easy to live in the physical world with. So it's easier for these people to escape through those means, or either they just trying to douse those sensitivities, they trying to rid themselves of those abilities, they trying to block it out. um and when you're gifted, when you're chosen, it's not an easy path in the physical. Like, believe that and understand it. You know what I'm saying? So you're chosen, you built for it. So but we still see that he's still guided by, Dick. He still pops up and still, even when he's about to, thinking about doing something, he comes in and plays a moral compass for him. Even though he's still living a screwed up life, you know what I'm saying? He still pops in to do that. And that's kind of like your spirit guides or whatever, because everything that's happening is happening accordingly. It's happening according to the plan, and it has to happen. Everything always comes full circle. So and it showed us the situation with him, and there's a girl, a woman that he meets, right? And so when he wakes up, and that's when we see Dick pop up again, because the girl, obviously she OD'd because she threw up. You know, when people do drugs and they vomit in their sleep, you gotta watch if they do that, because they could be ODing and they could choke off of it. You know, so it's really easy for them to die. You know, when people doing drugs or whatever. So he wakes up, and she threw up, and he probably don't even know her like that, from the way it looks. And he take all her money out of her wallet, and he see a little kid. She's out a little taller. She can't be no more than 2 years old. You know what I'm saying? And she's in there passed out from drugs, and he looked, and so Dick pops up, and he's like, bro, you can leave the money, man. He like, damn, she took my money, bro. Like, man, you can leave the money. Look, she got a kid in here. So he do, and he gives the little kid some little chips that's sitting on the table, and he just sit the little kid there with his mom, and he just dip out and he leave. Now, it's a really fucked up thing to do, but mind you, he's not shining. He made a choice that he don't want to shine. So he's purposely living a low vibrational existence. So he's making all these decisions that's keeping him at a low point. It's not good, not to say that it's a good thing, but that's what happens. So you got to understand people and why they do the shit that they do, because people are dealing with things on an internal level that we can never understand, because most people are not going to come out and tell you what it is that they're struggling with. But everybody has a struggle. Everybody, because there's nobody walking on the planet that doesn't have a struggle. I don't give a fuck who you are. Yeah, a lot of people look at me, think I have a lot of knowledge, I got a lot of answers, but bro, that's only because I seek that shit out, because of the fucked up situations that I've dealt with myself. So I'm not exclusive. Nobody exclusive. Nobody is. All right, so okay, so now the movie takes us back, and they're gonna bring us back to show us Rose. But before they do that, we see this young girl. She's sitting in the theater, and she gets approached by this older man, and it's clearly inappropriate. And then, so we notice Rose and her right hand Crow. They're watching, and she's like, "Okay, what's the deal with this little girl?" So what she does is, obviously the man is like a pedophile or whatever. He seeks out young girls on the internet. So, but what she does, she makes them fall asleep, whisper, kind of like hypnotize them. That's what she does. She's a pusher. She's able to push thoughts in your mind. So she makes him fall asleep, takes his money, and she's like, stabs 2 marks in his cheek. And she tells him, hypnotize him. Anytime you think about doing something like this, you're going to think about being bitten by a snake. Okay, so, but basically, so she playing with his mind. She's a pusher. So Rose sees it. She's like, okay, I like it. Because if you don't understand by now, what they do is they seek out these kids or these young people. Now, notice that they're starting with their young kids, or they're younger. The girl who we just met, she's about 14 or 15, I believe is what she says. So they meet these kids who have these abilities, which we know it as the shining. But what we are introduced to it as here in this movie, they call it steam, or yeah, they call it steam. So she's taken by this. She's like, okay, so she has a gift. I like this. So what she decides to do is they decide to take the girl, and instead of taking her and killing her and devouring her shine, she offers her the opportunity to join them. So now that we see that they either, you know, eat or consume the shining of the kids, or they can actually turn them if they have their own abilities. And so she says, hey, we haven't had a pusher for a long time. Do you want to join us? So, of course, she wants to know what's in it for her. She's like, hey, you're 15. The perks of it is, in 100 years, maybe you'll be 17. You eat well, you live long, and you'll stay young. So, what we learn is they do what they do to stay young. So, ultimately, this always boils down to what it boils down to: just fear of death, just fear of the unknown. These people fearing the unknown, or fearing an afterlife that they do not have, because if you're a soulless being, there's no afterlife for you. Okay, that's the spiritual concept. If you don't have a soul, what happens when you die? Is there nothing? That is the fear of a soulless people. So, um, that's what they decide. That's what we learn from that. Now, something interesting that the movie does, it kind of lets us know when shine or steam is being used, because the movie gives us a hint. There's like a sound effect in the background. You hear a heartbeat, and it like start to slow down. It's if you notice, whenever you hear that sound, whenever that sound effect is going, the shine is being used. It's an ability, whether you can tell or not. And so Dan, it takes us back to Dan, who's going to a new place and a new town, and he's using his shine. And I don't know if he's aware that he's using it or not, but he's just being guided, and he's guided to the guy that he meets, Billy, and for whatever reason, Billy helps him. But that's what the shine it do. That's what it was. That's what it did. It just led him to where it was that he was supposed to go. And so then at the same time, they flash back and show us back the girl who just said, that she wanted to join Rose and her crew. Her name is Andy. And so she gets initiated into the family. And so she gets changed. And however way that she changed her, what she does is feed her steam from another person. And she says, this is Violet. And Violet is who we met in the beginning. So it's been decades has passed, and she still has steam of Violet. So what we know is this thing lasts a long time. See, so it's giving us bits and bits of information, and we have to be critical and analytical and put the pieces together. So, man, they've kept this for a long time, and she has it in a canister. So what we also know is that they can save and consume this thing. So she changes the girl, um, and everything. So when the girl wakes up, she tells her, that she felt like she was dying. And Rose told her, you did, that you'll feel better when you eat. So she told her that she felt like she was dying. And I have a theory. You can't really verify it, but my theory is, like in order to become that, you lose your own soul. You have to lose your own soul. You feel what I'm saying? To allow yourself to be your vessel to be occupied by another thing to prolong your own life. Now, the reason why I say this is the connection to the Pizzagate and the adrenochrome is because that's what the adrenochrome is said to do. Now they say that if you all up on the theory of it, they take the kids, do all type of stuff to these kids, sexual. They kill them. They do all type of stuff to them, and they get their blood and they use their blood for adrenochrome to help them prolong life, to help them to live, to like quickly heal. They really show this all in the movie when they use the steam. That's what the steam do for them. You'll see like it'll help. It'll make them age backwards. They'll get younger. If they're hurt, it can help them to heal. So that's what it does. Okay, so now, so years pass and they show us, oh, well, not years. Years don't pass. That's not right. I'm in the wrong part. Because before that, they show us Dan, getting a job at the hospice after he gets himself clean or whatever. So he gets a job at a hospice, and it's here where he gets his nickname, Doctor Sleep. But I don't know if you notice or not, Dick all throughout his adult time was already calling him Doc. But this is where he gets his nickname. Um, because there's a dying patient, and the cat always goes to the room where somebody won't make it through the night. Cats are very, very spiritual. When people say, they don't like cats, or cats make them feel weird, then it's usually a tell sign of like a spiritual imbalance, or like of something spiritually about that person that they haven't come to terms with yet, because that's what cats are. Like, they're the most spiritual creatures ever. You know what I'm saying? You look at Black Panther, they worship Bast, the cat goddess. You go to ancient Egypt and you can study Bast. If you'll see cats, particularly especially black cats. But anyway, that's what the cat does. And so Danny goes into the room and he's talked to the man, and the man tells him about the cat. And so the man tells him how much he's afraid of dying. You know what I mean? And he's like, and he keeps calling Danny a doc. because of course he's old, he's dying, he see now. He's like, I'm not a doctor. But as he talks to him and comfort him, he tells him, no, bro, I think you are a doctor, man. Like you a doctor, you doctor sleep. Because the man didn't want to, he didn't feel comfortable dying, but he made him feel like you're just gonna be at peace, man. It's just gonna be a long sleep, and it's just gonna be the most restful, peaceful sleep you've ever had in your life. And when he told him, he did it through his mind. He popped up in his mind and told him telepathically, and it just gave him comfort, and it just helped him, and it helped Danny. I think, I don't know if it did at that time, but to realize his purpose, was to help people to transition to that other side. Um, because and I forgot to mention, the movie already showed us Abra, because when Dan decided that he wanted to move and he wanted to leave, they were showing us different locations and places. So Dan is traveling, and they show us and introduce us to the girl Abra, the little black girl. Her name's Abra. She's 5 years old. It's funny, her name's Abra, like abracadabra. So she's having a birthday party, and when she's having this birthday party, a magician is at her birthday party and shows a magic trick. And she says, I can do that, but most people don't take little kids serious when they say stuff. So when her parents go back in the house, she does a very similar trick, but way, way better in her house. You know what I'm saying? And it is so strong that Dan, at the time that he's traveling to where he's traveling, he feels it. And Rose, she feels it at the same time. So all this is happening at the same time. So this is like right after Rose and her crew meets Andy. And this is when Dan decides, fuck, I gotta get my life together. And Abra, at this time, she's only 5. And she, boom, she like, uses her shining so well that it's felt, but nobody knows what this is yet. It's just like a wave of energy. Because you got to remember, all throughout the movie, she kind of talks about her, the mind. She's like, the brain is like a computer, it's like a radio wave, and sometimes it's receptive, and she uses her mind like a GPS, because the mind is a quantum computer. You just have to program your computer to get it to fit the reality that you want to have present today. But we're not trained to work our quantum computer. We're just naturally programmed to be self-destructive and to destroy ourselves. But with your mind being a quantum computer and understanding that your thoughts are patterns and that your own subconscious sends out waves, understand that that's quantum entanglement. It's these thought waves and these thought patterns of your mind, your subconscious, interacting with other minds, interacting with other environments, i.e., making your reality the reality that you want. So, um, with Dan helping the people in the hospice, the thing that he said to him, it was like, we don't end. And it's one thing that I know for sure. And that is a very, very powerful spiritual understanding to have. And it's the very basis of the foundation of our own spiritual understanding that we had from our ancestors, is knowing that we do not die. Okay, because we can't truly liberate ourselves fearing death, because death will always be under the guise of under what you continue to keep yourself enslaved, because you fear the dying. So that's how you can be made into a slave. So it was very important for your oppressor to take away that spiritual foundation, to take away your spiritual beliefs, so that you could be fit to be a slave. Because if you do not have the mind, then there's nothing that they could never truly enslave you. You know what I mean? And so 8 years later, he and Albert, they still write and communicate through their shining. And I think that when he started to use his shine at that hospice, it allowed her to be able to pick him up the same way that he was allowed to meet the man in the shining when he was a boy. Because that's what the man told him then. Do you remember when I popped up and started talking to you in your mind? Because it was such a relief for him. Because, oh, somebody is just like me. So for her, it was the same thing. So now she's met somebody that's just like her because nobody is like her. You see what I'm saying? Like her parents and everything, they saw what she was capable of, but they don't have that ability. Okay, so now we go back to, and they show us after 8 years, they bring us an update on Rose and her crew. So basically, they starving. You know what I'm saying? They starving right now because it's 2019. A lot of these entities and a lot of these things can't live out here no more because the world is so different. And the way energy is utilized is so different. So Rose and her crew, they starving. Like they said there's not a lot of good steam or shine in the world today. All the steam and out there, and they're weaker. So they're feeding off of steam that's decades old and it's not enough. So they're having to ration off. And it takes steam to find steam because you gotta use that psychic power, that psychic energy to even find others that's like you. That's how Abra was able to find Dan because he used his shining. And see, that's why he said when he was a boy, I'm not gonna use my shining because he didn't want them entities to keep coming after him from the Overlook because he traumatized by that. That's what happens. You see what I'm saying? He's living based on something that helped him when he was young, something that he needed to do to survive when he was young. But now that he's an adult, it's not serving him no more. Like, bro, you can't behave like a child no more. You're not a kid no more. So that's the whole process of this thing. Everything works in a cycle, and he's gonna learn that. He don't know it yet, but he's gonna learn it. See, one thing about movies, the audience always gonna come to realization of things before the main character. You're supposed to, because it's like you're in on something, and that character hasn't been let in on that secret. So it builds the climax of the plot when that character finally realizes what you know, right? So now they find another kid. This other boy. This boy, his name is Brandon, I think. So it's a kid at a baseball game, and they're talking about him at the baseball game, and they're like, I'm telling you, it's like the kid knows what the pitcher's gonna pitch, and he's young, but maybe he's 12, 11, 12, something like that. And so afterwards, we see this boy walking all by himself, and it looks like an Idaho, because you see a bunch of cornfields, but they're in Idaho. And so he's walking all by himself, And if this movie don't teach you nothing, it should teach you that you need to always be on the lookout for your kids. Because people really be trying to take kids, bro. Like, honestly and truly, they will take your kid. And they actually show us this shit. They grab this boy. And this is where it kind of gets dark because they perform a ritual on him. They kill him painfully. They torture him. They kill him slowly. And somehow, because of the energy and because of how powerful Abra is, she picks up on it in her sleep. She literally starts to see it. And so it's like she's there, like she's out of her body, but she's there, kind of like astral projecting. And so she hears everything and she sees it. So Rose starts to talk, and this is where we get the jewels. And she says, pain purifies sting, fear too. So it's not a coincidence that they keep you out here scared and fearful. That's why I always say you can't allow fear to make you food for the gods, because they will eat you alive. And that's what I mean. They're going to eat your light. They're going to take your light from you and make you not want to shine. And so Abra feels it. And she feels it so much. It's so painful. It's so torturous. It's so dark. She can't help but scream. She can't help but to be fearful, and Rose can pick it up that she's there, that she's present. And she even can connect to Danny when she does this, and she just writes murder, just slams murder on the board to Danny, and it wakes him up, just knock him out of his bed. Such a powerful wave of energy, and it spells out. And as he looks up in his mirror, the same way that it was red rum in the hotel in the movie The Shining, you see the same thing in the mirror. So when he turns and looks at the wall, it's saying murder. So he's in the realization, the same way the realization happens to the mother in The Shining. He has the same realization when he sees it on the wall. And so when that happens, and it knocks him up, knocks him, gets him out of bed, and all he can do is go right to the boy. He writes to her, who, and she says, baseball boy back. So Abra just witnessed all of this, and Rose knows that somebody looked in on him. Somebody saw this. Now, mind you, Abra is all the way in where is she? Like Massachusetts somewhere. Anyway, she's over there all the way northeast. So she's a long way from Idaho. And so Rose knows, this has to be somebody super duper powerful if she can tone in on us from that far away. And so they're like, we have to hurry and get her. Because in today's time, what they tell you, we don't want it to freak her parents out, because they'll get her to see a therapist. The first thing they're going to do is get her to see a psychiatrist, and they're going to give her meds, and it's going to fuck up her steam. So listen, they giving you game. These mental health medications destroys your steam. It destroys your shine. It take away your psychic abilities. We shouldn't really be surprised at this anyway. So, Abra, she's curious. So she decides she wants to look this boy up and see if she can find him, and she does. And so when she finds him, she finds him on the Missing Children Network website. So she prints it out. She prints out the photo. Now, what you got to understand about spirituality, when you have a photo of somebody who's no longer here, it's like a calling card. It's like a spiritual calling card to that person. I heard Bobby Hemmett speak on this too. But looking at that photo can allow you to zone in on that person's energy. And when she did that, she closed her eyes and she did it. And she can literally begin to see what happened to him. And so she writes down the details of where they go, where they take him. This is why they show you in the movie Coco why you got to have your ancestors' photo on that altar. Why they put those photos up there. They told us in the movie, but for ritualistic purposes and for a deeper understanding, they give you game here too. So that's why you got to put those photos up on that altar, up on that sacred space, because that's what you're doing. You keeping that energy close to you so that they're able to help you outside of this physical realm, in that quantum spiritual realm. So she pushes her shine at this point, because she knows that she has magic, but she doesn't really know what she's truly capable of. Because she's living in a more supportive environment. Although nobody's like her around, but she has very supportive, loving parents. So her view on the world, her perception is going to be different than, say, Dan. But anyway, so when she's checking, when she's trying to see what she's capable of, she actually pushes herself and astral travels into Rose's body, and Rose can sense her, and she's walking in the grocery store. And so when she looks in the freezer reflection, she sees Abra and what Abra is seeing outside of her window. So she knows someone's here. She's like, who's this? But Abra is so strong, she can't even flip it on Abra, trying to get into Abra. She can't do it. And she's so strong, and at that same time she knocks out Dan. So from what we can tell, Dan and Abra share a very psychic connection. That goes back to what I was saying about quantum entanglement. They have a connection that's beyond this physical world, which is why she's able to connect to him. So when she has a strong use of her energy, of her power, he always senses it. So he just passes out, and they're like, damn, bro, what happened to you? He just passed out for no reason. He don't know what's going on. So, but at the end of the day, they're all connected. This is the quantum entanglement. So Rose immediately knows, this girl is way more powerful than I ever could have imagined. And there's no way that I could ever turn her. So she's too powerful for me to turn her. I could never turn her, So she's already made this decision. So of course now Abra is in danger. So at this same time, Abra feels like it's necessary for her to find Dan. I mean, Dan is the only person that's like her. Why not? So she seeks out Dan and she finds him, and she explains to him. He's like, "How you find me?" So she explains to him, "Yo, mama, it's like a GPS. Like you can do it too." But mind you, Dan doesn't use his shining. He don't try to use his shining. He ain't really been using since he was a little kid. He use it, but he don't really like to. He don't really want to. The only time he use it is unintentionally, or when it's just a situation where he just kind of has to use it. And so she tells them everything that's been going on and all of this, and it's a very important part. Because the reason how she lets it be known who she is she talks to him in his mind. And if you notice, he doesn't do it back to her. He doesn't do the same. um, because Dan has this negative outlook on his shining, right? And so he talks to Abra about the entities that can come after you because of it, because of everything that he experienced in the Overlook. And he says that everyone has a little bit of shine, but not too many people shine and know that they shine. Not too many people, that's because people are not aware of who they are. This is very, very common. We shine, but we don't know that we shine. He said, these people, they look like people. Well, no, she said, these people, well, at least they look like people. They ate his shining. And he tries to convince her not to shine because, like he says, they're going to come after you. And that's what these people do. They want to eat your shining. But what he's really doing, he's just projecting his fear onto her. He's projecting his own fear onto her because he's afraid because of his youth. Mind you, little Danny, the little child that's inside of us, that's the part of us that always gets traumatized that we try to protect. So we change and split our personality up to protect that part of ourselves so we don't be hurt that way again. And that's what he does, you know what I'm saying? He tries to tell her like, yo, you can't use it. These people they're gonna come after you. Yo, keep your head down. Don't do it. So basically he's telling her to be a punk. Don't do nothing, just stay to yourself. And so um now this next scene, we go to Danny. He's at his job at the hospice. The cat goes into a room like he usually does, but it's an empty room. And so he's like, cat must got his wires crossed, but he doesn't. So he goes in and he senses there's a present in there. So he gets a box ready in his mind, but it's not. It's his, basically it's his spirit guide, his dick. And he's like, hold on, bro, don't put me in no box. And so and at that time he says to him, he says something so interesting. He says, I never asked you back then, but what happens to them when I put them in the box? I never asked. And Doc looks at him and he says, do you care? Now, I say this is interesting because that same line of questioning, that same response was used by Rose when she was talking to Andy. Because after Andy was changed and Andy asked Rose, am I still human? And she said to her, do you care? So this is very interesting that they both say the same thing because to me, it insinuates that there's consequences, but they aren't highlighting what these consequences are. Now, the consequence for Andy, I feel, is that you lose your soul, like I said before, and you must continue to ingest the steam or continue to get it in order to stay alive, in order to keep your youth. And if you don't, you're probably going to experience a really painful death. So, but anyway, back to this. So Dick pops up and he says, "Man, it's been a long time. Like I didn't think I was ever gonna see you again." So Dick lets him know, "Has it been that long? I can't really tell." Time is different where he's at. This place is but a dream of a dream. So time is different in the spirit world. They tell you the same thing in that movie where what dreams may come. That Robin Williams movie, deep ass movie. If you ain't never seen it, check that one too. An audio breakdown will be coming on that one in the future as well. But so then he says, "Why are you here?" And he says, "I'm here because it all comes around." So he's implicating that there's a cycle that's at play here. So that usually means that there's something that's coming to an end in order for something new to begin. So there's a new cycle that's about to end. It began along with one that is about to end. He said, cause a will, doc. Karma karma is cause and effect. It is the consequences of your choices. It is the consequences of your actions. And I don't care what movie, what TV show, I don't care what you watch. There's always emphasis in using magic. There is always a price that you must pay. There is always a price. That is cause and effect. That is karma. There is always an a reaction based off of your action. All magic has a price. So, and he says to him, these empty devils. He says the words empty devils because they soulless. You see what I'm saying? They're soulless. There's these empty devils. They've noticed that girl. They might kill her, turn her, or worse, keep her around until she's all used up, which is worst of all. So um, he's telling him who and what they are and what they are going to do. Yo, they are going to get that girl. So full circle, bro, you connected to her. You can't avoid this. You have to do what you have to play your role in this, because they are going to come after her the same way those entities came after you in that hotel. They are going to come after her. And so he's like, well, why do I have to help her? Because she found you, bro, the same way that you found him, or like he said, the same way that you found me. She found you. You owe that to her. It's your responsibility in that. This is also, to me, is emphasizing the how the transition of ones becoming spirit guides. Because he told him, he said, this is my last time. You won't see me again, doc. He's preluding to something. And boy, you're not gonna see me no more. And he telling him all these things that come at this cycle. It all comes around. It's a prelude to something coming to an end. And because he helped him, you must help her. It's a will, bro. And he's pointing to an ending. And most of the time, endings of cycles always are emphasized by death, because something it's about understanding that death is the way for something new to occur. Energy never dies, it only transforms. So in order to become something new, that thing must die in itself. So it takes us back to Rose, because Abra used her abilities to get into Rose. Now, at the same time, Rose knows where she is. You see what I'm saying? So Rose is now, she's gonna astral project and find Abra. So, and we see her do it. We see her spirit leads and she astral projects and finds her. But what she don't know is Abra is prepared, because she did talk to Danny, and Danny did tell her that they gonna come back. So she was prepared, and she laid a trap for her in her mind. And it and when she does, and at the same time she gets into Rose's head and able to go into her mind. And and when Rose finally is able to escape, she's badly hurt. She's badly hurt, and she knows that this girl has so much power that she's no match for her. That's what she knows even in herself. And then they show us that the oldest of their crew, he's dying, right? And because they're saying there's something wrong with him. And if you notice all throughout, so he goes to walking with a cane. At that point, he's walking with a cane now. When it was first showing him, he wasn't walking with a cane. He wasn't, gray. He didn't look as old as he did at that time. So, and so the newest one, Andy, she's looking confused. She's perplexed, because she's like, yo, I thought that we didn't die. She's like, who told you that? I never said that. She said, eat well, live long, live young. I never said that you're immortal. I never said that. She said, we haven't been eating well for a long time. And so she talks to him. She's kind of like Danny, but she's just on the opposite side of the spectrum than Danny. You know what I mean? So she's there. She's trying to comfort him as he's dying. She's like, you've lived centuries. You've seen everything come down. You've seen so much. You feasted off kings and princes and emperors and popes. And, so it's nothing for you to fear. And so it looked like I said, it's a very painful looking death. And when he finally dies, he just eviscerates into steam himself. And what do? They just consume him. All they do is eat him too. They savages. That's what it's emphasizing. That's what it's showing you. So they really, to me, I feel like they really kind of trying to show you that there's something like reptilians or something along the lines of that. So with him realizing that, because Doc told him, bro, you need to get her what she asked you for. And Abra wanted him to go find that boy's body so that he can get the gloves so that they can find them before they find her. So Danny goes to Billy, the dude who's helped him and who his shining told him that he would help him. He would be a friend to him. He goes to him and like, bro, I need your help. And so regardless of how crazy all of this is going to sound, this is what I need. And he goes with him, because that's what a real friend do. Regardless of how crazy some shit sound, they going to be there for you. He goes with him because he like, yo, I don't know if I'm more afraid of what you're saying, if that shit being real or not, because that's even more scary than you being crazy. So they set out and they want to go and do it, and they do. They find the body. They set out and they go, and they go to exactly where they put the boy, and they find the boy's body. And they found the glove. And so at this point, Billy has no choice but to believe what he's saying. So now they go to Abra, and by the time they drive, they get there, and so she's told her dad. He told her to tell her dad. But she only told him. She didn't really show him. He was like, no, I told you have to show him. It's the only way. Because, of course, it looks weird. You know what I'm saying? If your 13, 14-year-old daughter, she meet this weird dude. And, she's like, my Uncle Dan. Like, Uncle who? So, of course, Dad's protected. So, he has to show her in his mind. And, so he's like, you know, he's freaked out about it, of course. And so what they decide to do is they're like, okay, we're going to set a trap because either way they're going to come for you. So what they do is they set up a trap and they actually kill most of them except one, Crow, and he ends up getting the girl. So he gets her, he drugs her, of course, because they have to keep you drugged in order to keep that steam so you can't use your power, so you can't use your abilities. So Danny at this point, he's like, really, he's looking at the bottle. He's about to take a drink. And so he stops for a minute and he's like, no, he realized, yo, I gotta use my shine. I gotta find her. So he tries to do it and he reaches out to her and he finds her and he pushes into her the way that she taught him how to do. And he gets in there and he gets her free from the crow and he kills the crow. So now Rose is pissed off. She mad as hell. She take all the steam that they got because it's just her. It's like 8, 9, 10 canisters. She take it all. She get juiced up and she heals herself from when Abra hurt her. And she's ready. So she like, fuck it. I'm going after her. And so Danny has Abra and he's like, the only idea he can come up with is to go back to the Overlook. Mind you, Doc told you this thing was going to come full circle. So he goes back to the Overlook because he feels like there are entities there that are just like her, and it's dangerous for us, so it has to be dangerous for her. So they get there, and he tells her to wait. I have to go in and wake it up. But when you see her coming, you let me know because you'll be able to see her from a mile away. So he goes in, and he has his moment in the Overlook. He walks through the hotel, shows all the old memories, all the old things, and he goes to the bar, and he sees the bartender who's a piece of his father. It's not his dad exactly, but it's a piece of him. It's a piece of him. And so he kind of confronts himself there. This is like a moment before the big moment because it's foreshadowing some things that's gonna happen. All right. So when they get inside, when she gets inside, she picks up on the entities and the energy in this place, but she ain't scared at all. So she just keep going. And so when they finally get in there and they meet up, when they finally meet with her, they take the battle to the mind. And so she thinks she's in Abra's mind chasing her. But what she realizes is no, it's Danny. And so then it hits her on what he is. And she's like, yo, how? How did we miss you? We should have met years ago. She said, something happened to you. Something happens to you, Rubes, when you get older. The steam gets polluted, dirty. You don't shine quite the same. I guess that's what happens when you get older. That's what happens to us when we get older. We're not as pure, because we've aged. That's what happens to us spiritually, to our soul. Our soul falls asleep, it goes dormant. It doesn't, it's not the same. We're not the same anymore. We're not those same beings anymore. And that's what she's emphasizing when she's talking about the steam. It's really just really talking about your soul. It's talking about your spiritual being, the soul of you. And Danny, his sting was so powerful, kind of like Abra's in his youth. But over the years, the drugs and the alcohol and everything, it's dirtied him up. And he's like, you're the last of you. He was like, no, baby, I'm not the last. I'm definitely not the last. And she stabs him. And she pretty much like um gets in his steam. She takes that wound and she just tortures him with it, and his steam is coming out. You can tell looking at it, it's not as white. It's like an off brown color, but she's loving it. She's like, wow. She's like, wow, like it's you taste like whiskey. But his steam is still very, very, very good for her. So that lets you know, even as you age, you're still you. You just gotta wake you up inside of you. And that's what the whole Osiris and everything and the whole Christ consciousness is all about anyway. It's about waking up your soul. Um and so all this is happening. And so at the same time, she's trying to get into him, and she realizes there's something in these boxes in your mind. What is that? And so she wants it because she's just sensing some energy. And she's like, what are you hiding in there? What is that? And he's just like, nah, they just hungry. She think it's something powerful. He like, nah, these entities, they just hungry. And he just let them out. And when he let them out, they get her. You know what I'm saying? They get her. And then at the same time, like, they eat her and they take her thing and they turn on Danny. But it was always a thing that Danny was supposed to die in that hotel. You see what I'm saying? And so he becomes a part of the hotel now. So he picks up the axe and he starts to chase Abra. And where does she run? Of course, she gonna run in the room 237, of course. So she runs in there, um, and of course, and all that everything's happened. She still sees the woman in the tub and all of that. And Danny comes in, and she's able to get the real Danny to come out, even though it's for a minute. And she's able to get away and runs out. So he's like, run, 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 all that. And he had already set the building up by tampering with the boiler. So the building blows up, it sets on fire and all that. The police and everything is coming, so it's just her. And so it goes on to show us the after effects. The girl is home now, and she's talking to Danny. Danny's at her window, but he's not really there though. So and now Danny has become like her spirit guide. So the reason why it was Dick last visit to Danny, because it was going to be the end for Danny, and Danny in himself was going to become what Dick was for him, and he had to become that thing for Abra. And what he says to her, he says, don't, he said, when we first met, I told you, he said, I was wrong. When we first met, I was wrong. I told you to hide your light, to not shine. But I was wrong. He told her to shine on Alberstone. And her mom came in and asked her who she was talking to, and she said, no one. And she thought about what he said, because we have to remember that we have to let our light shine. And she when her mom's leave out of the room, she says that's not true. She said, I was talking to Dan, and she says that he's okay. Dad's okay. She lets her mom know that it's okay for us. They're okay. Even when you die, there's more. There's something for us. So it's like she, in a sense, is like becoming the new Dr. Sleep, because when you have that ability and you're that tapped in, you know that there is something more, because you already know that you are more than your body. You already know that. You're already aware of it if you in tune with your shine. And she was. So the true way for her to shine is to spread that truth and to spread that light, even to those who don't shine. Even to those, you have to relay that message that there's nothing to fear. In the unknown, we do not end. And so, in that, that's the most powerful spiritual foundation that we have forgotten as a people. That's why, that's what made the Haitian people revolt. That's what made any people fight back for and liberate themselves, is in realizing you do not have to fear death. So there's a lot of messages in this movie. There's a lot of gems in this movie, and it's dark because they show you the dark part of how people can use this energy or their abilities and what they can do with it. But at the same time, if you can take that light and use that light for good, you can do so much good in the world. And that's what this is all about. You can't hide your shine, because when we make those subconscious decisions to do that and we decide to hide our light, then we are purposely putting ourselves at a lower frequency. And that's not a choice that you want to make as a higher being. You got to align with your higher self and be true to your light. You got to shine your light. So you got to do that. You got to shine on. And that pretty much, that concludes the breakdown of the movie Doctor Sleep. That concludes um pretty much all I really got to say about it. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. At this point, I spoiled the whole movie, but you definitely gonna understand everything that you're watching. And if you have seen it, go back and watch it again, because so much about it may jump out to you. You may pick up on some things that I forgot to mention here. So, and it's good for your own subconscious. It's good for you to come to terms with the meanings of symbology for yourself, because we all have eons of DNA in us, and different symbols and different things can activate different things within us and can alter our DNA in different ways. So, um, that concludes it. And until the next breakdown, I see you guys next time. Well, at least you guys will hear from me next time. Peace.